Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our webinar series, Using Social Media for Doing Research. I'm Professor Anja Neundorf, and I'm co-hosting this series with Dr. Aykut Öztürk. We're both based here at the University of Glasgow, but it's fantastic to use this format to connect to researchers across the globe and to share experiences of how we can use, these powerful tools of social media to do better, more exciting research. And it's great to continue this series. So please come forward if you have ideas of, sharing your research of what you're doing with the community. Today, we're very pleased to have Meta back, to have Phil and Jair from Meta's research partnership. They have already introduced the Meta content library about a year ago or so. So it's great to continue this because I'm sure that this is really a tool that is very useful for a lot of researchers working in this field. As always, Phil and Gerald first present, kind of an overview of what they want to talk about. And then we have hopefully enough time at the end to ask questions. If you have questions in the meantime, please post them in the Q&A. If there's something kind of quite specific that is more about, just, to make sure that everybody's on board, like understanding, we might interrupt Phil and Jared briefly, but otherwise we will have the Q&A at the end. Do not use the chat button. That's just confusing. The Q&A is much better. But with that, no further ado, over to Phil and Jared.
Thanks so much, Anja. So great to be back. Really excited to be able as well to share with you some updates that we've made to Meta Content Library since we last met a year ago or so. Just to briefly introduce myself to those who maybe weren't here last year, I'm Yair. I'm on the research partnerships team. Based in New York, former academic, so always great to be able to connect as well with my colleagues in the academic world. And today we're going to give you a high-level overview of Meta Content Library, some of its features, and as I mentioned, some new aspects to it since we last met. And then I'm going to pass it to my colleague Phil to give you a live demonstration of both the user interface and the API. I'm just going to give Phil here a chance to introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Yair. My name's Phil. I'm a partner data scientist here at Meta. I'm working to support Meta Content Library. Here to demo and introduce you guys to the tool that we have available. I'm also looking forward to hearing the questions that you have and what features that you'd love to see added to the roadmap. So looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Phil. So I think just to kind of, level set, some of you already might be familiar with Meta Content Library, but just so we're all on the same page here to start. I find it most helpful to think of Meta Content Library as one database of public content with two methods of access. So the first method being the user interface, which you see here illustrated on the left, and then an application programming interface or API illustrated here on the right. As you might imagine, the API is driven for more, programmatically inclined querying of the database at scale. It supports R and Python, so it's available for, more technically oriented users. Then we also have the user interface, which can serve a number of different functions. It can be an exploratory tool to kind of visually validate, the data and the queries that you put in the API. It can be used, for various kinds of social listening or media monitoring. And we also have some downloadable capabilities within the user interface. But generally speaking, it's for kind of less programmatically driven audience to be able to also explore and query the data set. The other thing I want to note about Meta Content Library is the public nature of the content available within it. So you basically have access to any content whose audience settings are set to public amongst three platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. The way to think about it is essentially as a near real-time snapshot of all the public content currently circulating on our platforms. And this includes both near real-time data as well as all the kind of archive of historical content posted, for example, on Facebook, going all the way back to 2004. So you have a very comprehensive set of public content. The other thing I want to note about the way the data is structured is if a piece of public content is made private or removed by a user, that no longer surfaces on the tool in order to uphold expectations of privacy and other safeguards. So broadly speaking, you can think of Meta Content Library as a near real-time archive and database of all the public content that's currently live on our platforms. So within that kind of broad bucket, there's up to 8 different endpoints you can query within the data set across the 3 platforms represented within the tool. So for Facebook, this includes posts from public events, public pages, and public groups. For Instagram, this includes posts from public creator and business accounts, public figures with large followers or verified profiles, as well as public pages associated with those accounts. And then finally, on Threads, which is a relatively new platform and endpoint that we added to the data set. I think this is one of the new things from last year that you'll note by this handy infographic at the bottom. This includes public posts from public profiles with 1,000 or more followers. I already kind of mentioned in the previous slide the depth and the comprehensiveness of the content available, and you really see that in a more zoomed in fashion here, just in terms of the different endpoints and the different platforms available. And just to reiterate, I mean, this is basically billions of near real-time historical data points that researchers can query within each of these 8 endpoints. So zooming in now a little further, just want to give you some insight into some of the different metrics and data types available within the endpoints mentioned in the previous slide. I won't go line by line here. I think you'll see in kind of in a better sense how these work in practice during Phil's demonstration, but I did want to highlight a few important features. I believe many of these have been added since we last met in 2024. First is public data download. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but essentially we've added the ability to download a certain subset of data within the entire database via a CSV file that you retrieve on the user interface. And this subset is determined by a follower threshold criteria. So just to give you an example, if let's say a Facebook page has 15,000 or more followers, all the posts, all the content associated with that page is available to download as a CSV file directly onto your personal computer. From there, you can import it into a Google Sheet, into Stata, into whatever programming environment you're most accustomed to using. Any pages under that threshold, in this example, 15,000 followers from a public Facebook page, you can still see that content on the user interface. You can also interact with it and query it and run packages, encompassing it via the API. It's just not available as part of the CSV download. So basically, we've determined via this threshold criteria, which content is available to download onto your computer versus which content you can analyze either in the API or visually explore in the user interface. As I said, Phil can also provide more insights into how those thresholds work for other endpoints during his demo. A few other new features I want to point out here. One is comments. So we've recently added comments as a data type to Meta Content Library. This allows users to view comments from Facebook and Instagram posts, both on the UI and the API. And again, as Phil will demonstrate, you'll notice when he shows you the demo that we've added a hash ID, a user ID to each commenter. So while all personal information from commenters are redacted if they're not a public profile, again, to uphold expectations of privacy, the stable hashed ID allows you to essentially track comments from the same account across multiple posts. So, this opens up a lot of opportunities for different kinds of network analysis, other ways of, understanding how content circulates on our platforms, how users engage with posts. And this is something that has previously not been available in any other meta research tool. So we're particularly excited to see how researchers use comments as part of their work. Definitely, give us feedback, let us know how this is working for you once you're on board to the tool. But just something as well that we're doing to really follow through on a lot of feedback we received from early users of the tool. Public data download and comments were two of the top most requested features we received from our beta testers, from our early adopters. So this is all to emphasize that we really rely on you, the researchers, to tell us what you most need to help facilitate your work. Without that, we would just be kind of taking a shot in the dark. But here, feedback is crucial to us to make the most informed decisions possible for our product and engineering teams to actually implement and execute features that you will find most useful. So your feedback is absolutely crucial to how we iterate on and improve these tools. Another new feature I'd just like to point out here is dashboards. So this essentially allows users to create custom dashboards to display post feeds and trend charts. This is based on selected keywords, or producers will likewise be able to demonstrate that to you in the demo. Just flagging that as another new feature we've unlocked to facilitate different kinds of research, also to allow you to compare posts on one single page across multiple platforms, which the default search results page does not enable. So again, this opens up new ways of doing analysis, doing kind of monitoring social listening, tracking viral content. The use cases are obviously more expansive than I could list here. And then the last thing I want to point out is a unique metric, post views, which allows you to see how many times a post was viewed by users since it was created. This is also a metric unique to Meta Content Library, not previously available in any meta research tool. And really what makes it unique is it goes beyond just your standard engagement metrics, which, of course, are also available within both the UI and the API. You can see how many likes, dislikes, ahas, wows, all the different reaction types, associated with a post. But along with that engagement data, you can now also see how many times a post was viewed. So this gives you additional insight into how content circulates on our platforms in ways that engagement metrics won't necessarily illuminate. And then, there's a large suite of multimedia content available that we are continually adding to as well. Part of the philosophy of Meta Content Library is, as our platforms evolve, Meta Content Library evolves alongside them. The example of Threads, for instance, when we first started Meta Content Library, Threads didn't even exist, as far as I know. And then, of course, once it's built, we want the public content from these new platforms to really grow alongside Meta Content Library's, data points and coverage that we make available to researchers. So, it's a constant work in progress that we're iterating on. And again, just to emphasize, so much of that depends and is so invaluable with regards to the feedback that you give us directly. So I'm going to transition here slightly from talking about the features within Meta Content Library to talk about a very important partnership we have with ICPSR, which is short for the Intra-University Consortium for Political and Social Research. A bit of a mouthful, but they are housed within the University of Michigan. And we partner with them in two ways. The first is they are an independent vetter of all applications submitted to access these tools. What that means is you submit a research proposal, not to Meta, but to what's called the Social Media Archive, which is the unit within ICPSR that hosts both the API, which I'll get into in a second, but also conducts all the vettings and approvals for the tool. What this means in practice is Meta plays no role in deciding who gets access to Meta Content Library. We don't ask to review publications prior to them being submitted to journals. We don't put any restrictions on the topic of research. We play a completely independent role, separate from all the decision-making that goes into who gets access to these tools, as I said, which is conducted by SOMAR within ICPSR. I'm happy also to get into more in depth on what the application process looks like. I'll also be providing a QR code in a few slides where you can go to our Transparency Center website, and from there, there's a direct link to go to their application portal. So that's one aspect of our partnership with ICPSR. The second is they host the API within their servers and their virtual clean room, or what they call their virtual data enclave. So essentially, the user interface is hosted by us at Meta. The API is situated in a clean room environment in what SOMAR calls their virtual data enclave. Now, this is important in the sense that clean rooms, which I'm assuming most of you are familiar with, our remote desktop virtual environment where you can conduct, very in-depth, robust analysis, run packages, query, the content within Meta Content Library at scale, with the proviso that any raw data sets, any raw rows of data that you return from your queries stay within this virtual remote clean room environment. So you can still export derivative data to use as part of publication, things like charts, graphs, other kinds of derivative data. But the raw posts themselves, the raw content, is situated within a Jupyter notebook within this virtual desktop environment. So again, this is done to uphold privacy safeguards, to protect against misuse, to protect against any potential abuse of what is an extremely large data set, by certain actors. So just to kind of mitigate against any potential issues there, the content for the API is hosted in this clean room environment. Last thing I'll say about ICPSR is, for those who might not be familiar with this organization, they have decades of experience. They're a global leader in data stewardship. They've been hosting very large, complex data sets and providing them to researchers, to the public, to companies, to all sorts of individuals and organizations for 60, I think, years. Don't quote me on that. I think I saw that figure recently. It's all to say they have much more experience than us when it comes to stewarding and hosting such large data sets. So we're really excited to be able to partner with them and have their expertise to govern how such a large data set is provided to researchers. They also have excellent support services, technical support, as well as if you have a question about your application, they provide really excellent service. I'll be providing their primary email channel that you can use to contact them in a couple slides from now. But all to say, they're a great resource. So we definitely highly recommend, if you do have any questions, whether it's about the API, whether it's about the application, to definitely use them as a resource. They just provide really excellent support all the way around. I think I'm seeing a few questions, but I don't know, Anya, is that, I don't have a complete visibility just because I'm in like full screen mode. So
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
mean,
you
to
want
be
to take
honest,
them now.
why don't we kind of, because two people actually now ask about the application process. And as we are kind of at this point in your presentation, why don't you just say a bit more about it? So Fred asked about kind of, like how does it work? Any like kind of suggestions of what kind of what makes a successful application, and there seems to be deadlines around this. Kind of when to expect maybe the next round of applications being open. Yeah, and there was somebody else also asking kind of how to improve it, and also kind of is it just like that the ICPSR like just says yes, no, or is there like room for kind of revise your proposal and then we let you in, or just say a bit more about this? I think that would be appreciated.
Absolutely. So maybe I'll start with just high level talking about eligibility criteria. So essentially, if you are an individual working for a not-for-profit institution that conducts scientific research in the public interest, you are eligible to apply to Meta Content Library. This, of course, includes academic researchers. I'm assuming everyone on this call is eligible in this regard. Once you submit a proposal, then ICPSR begins conducting their vetting And this vetting is essentially to verify that the proposal you submitted qualifies as scientific research in the public interest. This is a very broad definition, so it's not literally, like scientific the way I think about it, with flasks and beakers and Bunsen burners in my in my brain, right? If you're conducting, computational social science, sociological work, political science, people in the humanities have likewise gotten access, people working in the digital humanities. I mean, very wide swath of academic researchers, as well as those working for nonprofits. When you submit your proposal, we've actually broadened the criteria for what a proposal can include. It used to be a specific research project, which we heard a lot of feedback from researchers saying, this is too narrow of a criteria. I don't necessarily even know yet what my research questions are. I need to be able to analyze the data first before I start formulating, my thesis, my hypothesis. So we basically broadened the criteria for what a proposal can encompass to facilitate what is, a much more natural process when it comes to the scientific method and to academic research. So now researchers can submit a research agenda. So it's a more higher level proposal that can encompass multiple projects. So just as an example, you can submit a proposal that says, I want to study, phenomena of, political discourse in North America, on Facebook. Like that would, and again, purely an example, but that would be just one way to consider modeling how, something at the research proposal level might work. You can imagine from there, you can include multiple projects. When it comes to the question of, is it just a yes, no from ICPSR? We don't have like direct visibility. Again, part of the independent vetting partner relationship is the criteria that they ultimately use to decide, who is accepted or who is rejected, is based on ICPSR's prerogative, right? So we maintain, a distance. They maintain independence from us when it comes to these decisions. We can certainly communicate to you, what the eligibility criteria are, what the criteria are for a proposal, like I just laid out. Ultimately, it's ICPSR's decision, so we don't necessarily have visibility into, for instance, who gets accepted, or I should say, who gets rejected. But I'm pretty confident as a group of academic researchers on this call. If you submit a proposal that is, scientific research in the public interest, that you have a high likelihood of success getting approval. The last thing I'll say, I think there was also a question, Anya, that you were paraphrasing about kind of the schedule with which approvals are processed. It's on a rolling basis, so there's no deadline. So you can submit a proposal anytime, spring, summer, winter, fall, right? So there is no deadline. It's done on a rolling basis. And typically you can expect a response, no later than 6 weeks. I think that's like the average, or I should say, after 6 weeks, you can, ping their support channel and be like, hey, just want to check on the status of my application, that kind of thing. We're always, looking for ways to make this process more efficient, working with ICPSR, hearing from researchers about their experience. So if anyone on the call has applied to the tool and has any feedback for us that we can give ICPSR, we'd certainly welcome that as well.
We might just pick this up again because there seems to be, kind of some feedback on this, with also Lisa Wood, for example, saying that she's been waiting now for 10 weeks and, they haven't been, very responsive. So we can maybe pick this up again later. But yeah, maybe you want to.
Absolutely. And this is actually, well, I'll stop here, but the next slide, I'll actually give everyone the email for their support channel, because I think precisely if something like this has taken up to the 10-week mark, that's when contacting them directly would be beneficial, just to get any insight into like potential like documentation that you might want to submit. I don't know, whatever the reason may be, just to get a status update from SOMAR. This is a QR code. Feel free to follow this link, but it basically takes you to our Transparency Center website. where you'll get more information about the different features that I went over in the set of slides where I went over the features of our tools, as well as I referred to earlier, a link to the application portal for ICPSR. So that way you don't have to, remember everything that I was rambling about in the last 20 minutes. You have a static reference guide for you as well to understand more about the tools. There's also links within the Transparency Center website to our developer documentation, so you can get an even more detailed look at the different data fields and how the content is structured, both in the UI and the API. And then finally, as I mentioned, here are some support channels, some helpful links for you to follow. The first one is just the URL version of the QR code that I shared in the last slide. The second is our support channel, which you can reach at support@meta-researchtools.atlassian.net. And then finally, ICPSR's email at somar-help@umich.edu. So definitely encourage you to leverage all of these different support channels and information guides as you begin your journey onboarding to Meta Content Library. I think that's it for me. I don't know if you want to pause here before I hand things off to Phil for other questions, or maybe just in the interest of time, we can just kind of get going with the demo. Okay, I'm just going to click out and pass things to Phil.
Awesome. Thanks, Yair. Let's see if I'm able to share my screen. Is this coming through? Awesome. So I'm going to spend the next 15, maybe 20 minutes giving an overview of user interface. Then depending upon how we are on time, I might give a really, really brief demonstration of the API. This is the home screen for Meta Content Library. And it kind of jumps you right into what you really need to access the most, which is the searching and how to find what you're interested in. It's also highlighting some of the recent features that we've made available, including quickly uploading and creating a list of producers from a CSV file, sharing the saved searches and saved producer list that you have inside of the user interface and bringing them over to the API and the clean room using some shared features. And then lastly, expanding your search results by the ability to search text within images. So search one of the largest content databases from Meta. How you would go about what you're searching is firstly by selecting which platform you're interested in studying, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, or Threads. And then secondly, selecting which subset of data you're interested in looking at. Either all available public data, which is characterized as organizations or individuals who are either verified or have over 1,000 followers, or the downloadable subset, which is focused on widely known individuals and organizations. We've defined this as profiled with a verified badge or over 25,000 followers and pages with over 15,000 likes or followers. If you're interested in learning more, there's a really helpful link here, which kind of compares and contrasts the two data sets. From there, either type in the text keyword or phrase that you're interested in studying, searching, and it's going to go ahead and load your results. Did I search this correctly? Located at the top here, we see a number of different filter options, the option to find text and images, and then also the I'm searching within Facebook and all available public data. There are some options here at the top to learn more about how to search, about the data set, to save a search, as well as bring it over to the API or to share it with a colleague. Some of the filter options I have available include what date range I'm interested in looking at, whether by default we're looking at the last 6 months. However, Meta Content Library is a full repository of all data by Meta, going all the way back to 2004. You can also filter by which surface the post was made to, what country the post was made to when you're looking at pages and profiles, what language the post was in. Over 180 languages are supported. filtering to specific producers or a list of producers that you've created in advance, specific types of content, including story highlights, videos and reels, or photos, filtering by the list of views a post has, and whether or not it includes branded content. By default, we're searching from most to least views, and we're looking at a card view, which really highlights the context of the post itself and the multimedia. So we can see here that the most viewed piece of content is by Connor Nelson, and it's a video of day 2 of the Palisades fire. I can hover over his name to learn more about him. We have an intro here. He's the director of photography, director of Winter Park Film Festival, and the founder of a live film challenge. We can see how many followers he has, when his profile was created, and where he's based. The multimedia is playable within the content library, so I could go ahead and play it. And then located above is a breakdown of some of the different metrics that are available, including the number of views, the number of shares, comments, and reactions. I can hover over the eye for any of these to learn more. In particular, for the views data, it's going to let me know when this was last refreshed. Views is very computationally expensive, and it's generally updated every 5 to 7 days. And also get descriptions of shares, comments, and then a breakdown of the different reaction types. So likes, loves, cares, haha, wow, sad, and angry. At the bottom of each post is a view comments button. If you were to open this up, then we dive into a detailed view of the post. So on the left-hand side, we have the content of the post itself. On the right-hand side, we have the details about the producer, and then all of the comments that were made on the post. We can see here that for a lot of these individuals, we're not getting a name, we're just saying a Facebook profile and an ID. These are private Facebook profiles who have commented onto a public post. And while we want to make this, the comments data available to you, to researchers, we also want to protect the privacy of that individual. So we've anonymized them. However, we've identified them with an anonymized ID. This is a stable hash. And so if you're able to use this ID and follow an individual throughout a comment thread and across multiple comment threads. You can also see the reactions to a specific post and any replies to a post. If a public user has commented on a post, then they would be identified. Going back to the search, something that I want to highlight briefly is one of our latest features, which is find text in images. I'm going to go ahead and update this, and it's going to reload the results. It's going to let me know that text and image matches are only available for posts made approximately within the last 90 days. This was a decision we made to launch the feature quickly and get it out to the community. I'm going to filter to a specific producer, People Magazine. Firstly, to showcase how you can filter to specific producers, but also show you what it looks like when it uses text and image to as part of the search criteria. So it's going to let me know that the data quality for text and image is a little bit different, but it's letting me know that this post here was identified using text and image to identify Palisades. Some other features that we have available, we have a dashboards feature, which is really helpful for studying an event in near real time and kind of watching the reactions as they come in. You can save results to come back to them. Producer lists, so you can curate lists of football teams, political candidates, and others to review them or make them, as well as share them amongst your colleagues. And then lastly, you can look at the downloads that you've made either currently or in the past. This is an example of a file that I downloaded recently. Now I'm going to jump over to the API and just spend 5 or 10 minutes highlighting some of the features that are available within that. So for the demonstration of the API, I'm going to be using Meta's researcher platform. This is a little bit different from the virtual data enclave that ICPSR hosts. While the syntax is slightly different, all of the features that I'm highlighting today are available inside of the VDE. I'm just using it because the screen sharing terms, you have to be a ICPSR vetted user for me to screen share that to you. So I'm going ahead and importing some standard Python libraries, including pandas and NumPy, and then loading in the content library. What we're going to cover today are some foundational principles, the different API endpoints to gather the data you need, when to use a synchronous and asynchronous search, and what's your query budget and how to manage it. We're also going to be working through a basic example, which is collecting the posts from the 2020 US Democratic candidates from February 1st, 2019 and to August 31st, 2020. So we're going to be collecting data, exploring the data fields available in posts, estimating the response size and how to manage your query budget, and then creating some simple charts to showcase the depth of data and insight that's available within the data set. So to start off, I'm going to be collecting posts data. To do that, I'm going to be selecting the search type and endpoint that I'm interested in using, and then entering the parameters to filter the results down to what I want to study. So I'm going to start with search/Facebook posts. Search means that it's a synchronous search. It's going to pull the first 10 results and make those available to me quickly. And then I'm interested in looking at Facebook posts data. Then I'm loading in the parameters of data that I'd like to look at. So I have my date range, February 1st, 2019 to August 31st, 2020. I don't have a keyword search because I'm interested in all posts by the producers. And then I have a list of page IDs, which I've loaded in advance, which identifies each of the candidates. It's going to return the results to me as a JSON. We can see some of the different fields that are available. And I've gone ahead and loaded this into a pandas data frame such that we can explore it together. Firstly, we have the ID. This is the unique identifier to the post itself. We have the text of the post, the creation and modified time of it, what language the post was in, whether it includes any multimedia, videos, photos, a link to an external website. Then we get into our statistics, count of comments, count of shares, the number of views that the post has, when the views data was last refreshed. We have some nested inside of this column. We have some information about the post owner, what type of Facebook producer it is, the ID of the post owner themselves, and some other details. When a link is attached and used as the kind of the featured attachment, then we have some additional information here, both the description and the short and long form name. And then lastly, we have some statistics, the number of likes, loves, wows, haha, sad, and angry, number of cares, and then the total number of reactions, which sums across all the different metrics. So that was a demonstration of a synchronous query. So I submit the query and then I wait for the results live, and it displays 10 results at a time and allows you to look at data page by page. It's designed for exploration and for fine-tuning your search parameters. When you want to pull in a large corpus of data, then we would switch over to an asynchronous query. To do that, I'm going to update my path here from search to async search. And then the parameters I have here are the same. To start off, I'm going to include estimate is equal to true. And it's going to let me know an approximate number of results that this is going to return. The estimated number is always going to be higher than the actual number of results that are returned. So this is estimating around 56,000. This is important for me for two reasons. Each researcher has a query budget over a rolling 7-day period that they have to stay within. And secondly, as a technical limit, async can only return 100,000 results at a time. If it goes above that, that's to get above kind of our technical limits, and you would need to break it up into 2 queries, generally using an explicit filter, such as a date range. Then I would go ahead and submit the asynchronous query. It's going to run in the background and let me know, and I can check on its status to let me know whether it's in progress or complete. While that's running in the background, I have full control over my Jupyter notebook, and I'm able to run other cells or analysis. When it's complete, then I can collect the data, and I've gone ahead and saved it into a CSV file just for this workshop. So an asynchronous query is available when you want to work with all data from a search. The API returns true when submitted, and then will run in the background for some amount of time. It's generally only a couple minutes. API is available to check the status of the request and let you know when it's complete. An asynchronous search can return a maximum of 100,000 results. This is a technical limit. If your query is greater than that, then you can break it up into 2 or more requests. As a researcher, you need to stay within your query budget. This is the maximum number of data records you can retrieve within a 7-day period. And you can also check on how much of your budget you've currently used. So these are my statistics. I've currently used about 22,000. That's my current usage. I don't have any pre-allocated rows for asynchronous queries that I have running currently. And it's letting me know that my maximum limit is 500,000. This is the default limit, 500,000. If you find yourself reaching that limit, then you can reach out to either Meta or ICPSR, and we're able to double that to 1 million results. If you go above that, please reach out. I can't make any promises, but we'd love to learn about your use case, if there are any optimizations that you can use, or if it's an area that we should invest into improving. So now looking at the results from that asynchronous search, it's letting me know that there were 21,584 records. We can see that this is the same structure that we were looking at earlier. And then I want to show you some quick charts of some of the insights that you can pull from these results. So firstly, the average views per post by candidate over this date range. We can see that Joe Biden had the most views on his post, followed by Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. We can look at the percent of posts that had a link to an external website. So Kamala Harris, 54% of her posts had a link to an external website, 45% Elizabeth Warren, so on and so forth. And we can also look at and investigate the specific links, websites that candidates were sending people to. So Amy Klobuchar, a lot of the New York Times and the Washington Post. Elizabeth Warren was sending people to her candidate website, same with Joe Biden. And we can look at the explicit count of posts. Lastly, I want to highlight the range of different endpoints that you can use to collect the data that you need. Each endpoint is focused on a specific set of data and will return a different set of columns. So we have endpoints for Facebook pages, Facebook groups, Facebook events, Facebook profiles, and Facebook posts. We were using the Facebook posts endpoint in this example to pull posts data. But if you wanted to get the descriptive details around a Facebook page or a Facebook profile, then you would use the relevant endpoint. For Instagram, there's Instagram accounts and Instagram posts. We have comments data that's available as well. It's available for both Facebook and Instagram. And the process of collecting that is a 2-step process. Firstly, you identify the post that you're interested in collecting the comments about, and then collect the comments off of that post. So that was the quick demo that I had set up for you today. Just a really brief overview of how to search and dive into the UI to explore posts and its content that you're interested in studying. And then jumping over to the API, how you can collect a large corpus of data, and then some of the insights that you can collect from it. With that, I'll hand it back over to the moderators and Yair, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much for the demonstration. I think that was really helpful to just see how both work, the interface and the API. So thank you very much. And also, it's really great to see how this is a two-way process in a way that, Meta is responsive to the needs of researchers. I think can sometimes be a bit peculiar, surely, but it's great, right? Because ultimately, your work and effort is about, providing, a product that works for researchers, and it's great that you are responsive and so on. And I hope that maybe even just like kind of some of the feedback you get here will help you again to know what the community thinks and what they need. Jaya, thank you for already responding to some more of the questions. They were sometimes, a bit more specific, but we can go over some of the more kind of open ones. Something that I thought was a really good question, because, you did come also to talk about the ads library, which is another great feature that you provide to us. So somebody asked, like, is there any kind of, how are these two related? The content library and the ads library, do they speak to each other? And yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the way to think about this is the ad library essentially contains what's called inorganic content, right? So paid content, content from advertisers. Meta Content Library is geared towards organic public content. So, posts from pages, from other endpoints that don't include, paid promotions or what we call, inorganic content on our platforms. There is actually a bit of a middle ground there. We do include branded content as a filter option, which essentially is organic content that just incorporates sponsored promotions of brands, within its posts. So that's kind of the extent to which there is a bridge within the actual data available within Meta Content Library, but kind of conceptually speaking, they are catering to two, different, though of course, related use cases. Yeah.
Yeah. I lost a bit overview of what you have actually already answered.
Oh, yeah. We can revisit those as well if it helps.
So the first question by Sivras, is it possible to filter access to content on Meta around sub-specific topics? Anywhere only where sample summaries of data available is in the library provided. So I think you kind of showed that probably in the demonstration, I would say, where, searching for different search terms, kind of, maybe that's what he or she meant, yeah?
Yeah, so as it comes to kind of searching and identifying the corpus of data that you need for your research topic, we're hoping to make the data available and to provide some efficiencies in finding it, but it's ultimately up to the researcher and how they want to define that corpus. So what search terms that you want to include and not include, what phrases to include or not include, and then also what set of producers you want to include or not include. It's up to the researcher to kind of curate that, and it really gets to the kind of the core of their research topic.
I think you showed that quite well in the demonstration, that there's really full flexibility around how you want to subdivide. There's a new question now about kind of the definition of public. I mean, you talked about this. I guess that's something that where to draw the line, what is public, and so on. It's an interesting one. So yeah, maybe Jerry, you want to take this. So if the profile is public but not over the 15,000 threshold, how does that work?
Great question. I know, especially when we're talking about thresholds and numbers, it can get a little confusing. So just to clarify, if a page has under that threshold, it's still in the Meta Content Library. It's in the data set. It's just not available for download. So you can still discover, view, analyze content associated with public pages of any follower account. So if a public page has one follower, that content is in Meta Content Library. It's just not available for download.
Yeah. There was something about kind of the content that is available on the content library. So are there any other reasons why posts are deleted from the library, other than kind of somebody switching a public setting to a private setting?
Yeah, I guess the other factor would be if it's content removed by violating our community standards. So that would also be another case of content no longer surfacing on the tool. But generally speaking, it's from posts. I would say the majority are from posts whose audience settings have changed from public to private or have been deleted.
Great. And then a more technical question about kind of the API. So, I mean, you kind of showed that, I think, in the demonstration about the comment IDs. So maybe you want to kind of just, explain it again. I mean, it's, by the way, great that comments are available now. I remember that this was definitely some feedback you also got in the last session, like, oh, we need the comments. So great to see that that's included now. So yeah, so they were asking kind of just about how the comment ID works in the API and how to work with it. So anything you still want to kind of add to that?
I can take this one. So for comments, yeah, the way you access it is kind of searching for posts and identifying the posts which you want to pull the comments off of. And then after identifying those posts, you would pull the comments and it would give you the full set of comments off of that post. If you're interested in kind of searching comments, after collecting those, you can kind of search within those. And then it's also an area of investment for us. And comment searchability is an area of investment for us, and look out for more.
You also, Phil, I think there was another question related to that. I saw whether the comment IDs are the same across the UI and the API. I think that was another question.
That's a great question. So across Meta Content Library in both interfaces, every user has a hashed anonymous ID. It's stable. As they switch, if a user switches from public to private, that ID stays stable, and it's also stable across the entire library. Every post that they make, every comment that they make, every comment thread, across comment threads, it's a stable ID.
Makes sense, yeah. There's still a few questions about access, so maybe we can kind of just go with these again. JR, I saw that you answered the question about IRB, but I just wanted to kind of, because some people don't look kind of at the written answered question, but just I think it's an important point to remind everyone. So maybe you want to kind of.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Anya. So last year when we met, that was still a requirement as part of your submission to access the tool. Within that time, the University of Michigan has waived that as a requirement in terms of your documentation. So if you're submitting a proposal, you no longer need to supply IRB or ethics, any documentation from your institution. Hopefully, that's music to people's ears here on this call. We heard a lot of feedback, probably from many people in attendance today, about that being a particular pain point. So ICPSR worked with the University of Michigan to no longer have that as a requirement as part of your documentation.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful to know. There was also somebody kind of giving their experience about kind of that there is a bit of a shutdown at the moment, that you already mentioned that there's applications are on a rolling basis. There are no kind of deadlines as such, but at the moment it's not really possible. So maybe just to kind of reiterate that again, that maybe at the moment there's an issue, which is of course unfortunate. So maybe just want to kind of follow up with them and kind of see what's happening. Because obviously, like, there's now people here that probably get kind of excited and they want to get started and they want to put in an application. So yeah, maybe just if you know anything else about this.
Yeah, we we talk with ICPSR regularly, so once we hear something, we'll certainly let you know, Anya, as well as your broader network and people in attendance.
Yeah, something that also somebody asked and I was wondering is, how popular is it? I mean, like, do you have any data on us, like the users, or not? I mean, yeah, of the content library. So how popular is it, and like kind of yeah.
Great question. So I don't think we have raw numbers that we can quote in terms of how many users are currently onboarded to the tool. I will say, interest in Meta Content Library, applications, people who've onboarded has really picked up a lot of momentum since we met last year. So I don't know what kind of baseline to compare popularity to. I'm like thinking in my head, like, oh, like I just watched the Grammys the other night. I'm like, it's definitely not, that level of popularity. But I would
I
say,
think, but yeah.
yeah, I would say though, it's without having any numbers in front of me, I do think we're picking up a lot of momentum. I think we're seeing especially a lot of CrowdTangle users migrate to Meta Content Library and begin adopting our tools. And I would say, yeah, we still have room to grow. And it's partially why we're so excited to meet with you and this group, especially to those who haven't submitted applications yet. But yeah, I would say the popularity has certainly increased significantly within the last year. So that means also we have a lot more work to do. We have a bigger audience of users. We have people with more diverse set of needs. So that's also exciting for us to be able to get more insight, more perspectives, more feedback on how we can improve the tools to better serve your research goals. So.
And then maybe just a last question on this about, I mean, you kind of explained who has access, and anybody from, a university with, a decent idea about what they want to research on seems, that just go through. Now it even got easier with IRB being waived. Any idea about like kind of percentages of applications getting rejected? And maybe the main reasons for that, is that mainly because they're not university affiliated or public bodies or NGOs or something, nonprofit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to kind of go back to what I was saying before, since ICPSR is an independent vetting partner, we actually are not given any data on applications that get rejected, nor the reason that they were rejected. So again, this is something that's kind of strictly like separate from our level of visibility. So I can't, speculate on like if there were applications rejected, what the reasons would be. I think eligibility criteria would make sense as an example for why an application would be rejected, but we don't have any direct kind of insight into either the amount or the rationale.
Yeah, and then just some kind of two more technical questions. So Barbara is wondering about kind of when people or profiles switch to be private, what is actually then dropped, and inaccessible from the library? Is it everything, or just from the moment they switch to private, or how does it work?
Great
Bill,
question.
do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Yair. It's a great question. The philosophy behind Meta Content Library is to make everything that a user sets as public and to respect those user settings. And so when a user changes their settings from public to private, all of their content would be removed in near real time. If they go in and kind of remove one specific post or change those settings of one specific post, then just that post would be removed.
And then we have a question about kind of IDs and API dashboards again. So similar with the comment ID, but just to reiterate this, so Facebook profile IDs, are they the same between the API and dashboard?
They're the same between the UI and the API. What I will say though is between kind of Facebook public as you know it today and Meta Content Library, they are a different set of IDs.
I think that's an important point, right? And in that, of course, will also again protect users to some extent. Yeah, and then are queries and selected data sets kept, and can they be reproduced? Because it's always the question with our profession moving more and more to replicability, and this kind of research is sometimes a bit more difficult to comply with this. So any feedback on this?
Gary, do you want to take a first stab at this?
Yeah. So of course, understand replicability, reproducibility as being core to being able to verify results, especially with reviewers. This is something that we want to hear more from the research community in terms of implementation. So especially as Meta Content Library matures, and people get closer to publication. I will say, there are already several papers, I believe, in preprints. I don't know if I want to advertise them yet before they've been approved, but there is a path to reproducibility that has been taken by researchers using our data. I think this is a work in progress still, insofar as we want to hear more from you on what your needs are in this area. Also, something that is very top of mind for SOMAR and ICPSR. Again, as Anya, you're alluding to, this can be, especially when we have raw data within a clean room environment, this can pose some challenges when it comes to, engaging in reproducibility and replicability. So definitely something we want to be in collaboration with the research community, working closely as well, as I said, with SOMAR at ICPSR.
Great. And I would just close with Reese's question about, I was puzzled as well about a post that got 240 million views, but only 13 comments. It's like, what happened there? Any speculation?
It's a great great question. I think one thing that I noticed was that was a reel. And so a great research topic could be, the number of comments and the likely versus views that reels versus other types of content get.
I think that makes sense. Reels are something that people just kind of, quickly watch, and it's less maybe, kind of engaging because that's kind of a natural, quick exposure, character. Anyway, fantastic discussion, and also thanks to everyone asking great questions and really engaging Phil and Jair to talk more about kind of specifics. Thank you very much for coming here again and sharing all the new features. So keep doing this. There's obviously interest, and we even so there was a bit of repetition in kind of introducing how the API and the dashboard work. But I think it's great because we have new people that join us while you're also introducing new features. So I think that works really well. Having said this, we do have another session in 2 weeks. So now I'm announcing ourselves here. So Aykut and I will talk about our experience that we gathered in the past kind of 2-3 years of using Facebook advertisement to recruit research participants into our surveys and online experiments that we conducted in more than 30 countries from around the globe. So it's, I know that more and more people use this because it's a great way to get especially survey participants in a relatively cheap way, and doing this kind of outside the typical countries was real experience. So we're going to talk about this, hopefully find it interesting, and then we have a third session that was announced a bit later that we're also really excited about. We're moving to WhatsApp, where some people have developed a great new tool also to use WhatsApp content and kind of an API to work with that. So that's going to be in 4 weeks then. But with this, thank you again, Phil and Jair. Come back, and thanks everyone for joining us again today. Just to let you know, this recording will be put online, so will be the slides, so that you can just watch it again if you want to see the demonstration again, for example. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you having us. Thank you.
Thank you.